Welcome to the Story Learning Podcast, regular doses of language learning tips and motivation to help you become fluent in any language. With me, Olly Richards. For language programs, books, free resources, and much more, visit StoryLearning.com. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the I Will Teach You a Language podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If you're new here and you're learning a language, or trying to, then you're in the right place. This is where I talk to you about language learning, give you some of my experience about learning languages, from my experience of learning about, give or take, about 10 languages, most of them really badly, but nevertheless, having the experience of going through that language learning journey and figuring out quite a few, I guess you'd call them truths along the way, commonalities, things that make language learning easier rather than harder. And today we've got a question that links what many of us dream about doing. It's the link between actually learning a language and then having the opportunity to go to the country to put it into practice and experience the local culture and everything else that brings. All right then, without any further ado, let's get into today's question from Quinton.
Hi, Ollie. My name is Quinton. I live in Arizona in the United States, and I've been studying Portuguese and Mandarin for a couple years now. My Portuguese has now gotten to a point that it's pretty proficient. I can hold a conversation on most things. However, my Mandarin is still somewhat basic. I only know maybe 30 or 40 characters by heart. And I have an opportunity to go to China this summer and stay for an extended period. And my question is there anything you could suggest to help improve a little bit more? I only have about 2 months before I'll be going. Some people have suggested that I focus on learning all the radicals and phonetic symbols in order to learn more of the characters more easily. However, other people have said that with how little time I have, it would probably be better to just focus on the pinyin and on the verbal spoken language more so than anything else. But I'm not sure if that'll help me when I'm trying to learn the written language while I'm there. So any thoughts, suggestions, or ideas for things I could do in the short amount of time I have to better prepare myself? Thanks.
Hey Quinton, thank you very much for a great question. And wow, that's so cool. You're going to China. I'm so jealous. I'm sure everybody else listening is jealous as well. I hope you have a really great time, and I'm sure you're really, really excited. There's two things you've got to think about here. The first thing is, what are you actually going to do when you're there? Are you just going to hang out? Are you going to stay with the host family? Are you actually going to be in a school? That's the first question. The second question is, and this is probably the most important question, what will you be able to do, or what will you have the opportunity to do when you're in China that you don't currently get the opportunity to do in Arizona? Now, the thing about Chinese is that you've got these two strands, right? You've got to learn to read and write. Well, you don't have to, actually, but most people want to. You've got to learn to read, let's say, and then you've got to learn to speak. And although they're obviously very closely linked, you don't necessarily need one or the other. Now, we're not going to get into a discussion here about whether or not you should learn to read and write Chinese characters, because we've done that elsewhere. And also, I don't know that much about your situation, Quinton, so it's difficult for me to comment. But I would have thought that if you're going to spend a bit of time in China, whether it's a couple of weeks or a couple of months, most likely the unique opportunity that presents itself from that trip is the opportunity to speak a lot with people. When it comes to reading and writing, if that is an aim of yours, if it's something you want to work on, you don't have to be in China to do that. You know, you can do that perfectly well in your room at home in Arizona. You know, yeah, it's not so fun, and yeah, it might be a bit slower, but really, it's just a question of learning a lot of characters. And there's nothing particularly unique about going to China for learning Chinese characters. You know, if you're just there for a few weeks, yeah, I mean, you might pick up a few characters on the street, but really, if you're going to improve your writing or your reading massively, it's going to mean you sitting in a room by yourself and studying. So, you know, you can do that back home in Arizona. So for me, the really unique opportunity you've got is to speak. And in your situation, what I would be doing is to try to find as many, or arrange as many speaking partners as I can in advance. What I found when I went to Hong Kong was that everybody spoke to me in English in the sort of circles that I moved in. So the way that I got my speaking practice was actually going on websites like conversationexchange.com and actually looking for local people in Hong Kong who were up for doing language exchange. And that worked out super well. But the point was that I had to actually go and organize it. In China, I don't think, from what I've heard, because I've never been to China, but from what I've heard, you won't have the same problem. It's not so common to speak English in China. And so you should be able to get a lot of Chinese speaking practice there. So the first thing is that I would focus all of my ambitions during that trip on just speaking as much as possible. That's the opportunity you've got. And if you do spend a few weeks speaking non-stop, then you've got a great opportunity to really cross that threshold of competence and confidence as well, that comes from just many, many hours of speaking and pushing through those language barriers and stuff. So that's the big opportunity. In terms of how to prepare for that, then I would get on italki. As you know, you can get a free lesson at italki, iwillteachyoualanguage.com/free lesson. So use that if you haven't already. I would find a couple of tutors on italki, and I would just be speaking with them every day. It's very affordable to get spoken Chinese practice online. So if you can, I would load up your days with 30-minute speaking sessions. So every day, speak Chinese for 30 minutes. Just get into the habit of it. Get that speaking muscle going. And just do that really. I mean, if you're going soon to China, you're not going to make a massive inroads into your ability in just over a few weeks. So I think the biggest thing you can do is just get that speaking practice, get used to speaking Chinese on a daily basis, so that when you arrive, you can really hit the ground running. Now, again, I don't know what your situation is, whether you're going to study in a school or whether you're doing a homestay, or what, or if you're just on a trip, if you're going to be traveling around. All of those situations have slightly different implications for you and language practice. If you're doing a homestay, it's ideal because you just speak all day long. If you're going to a school, then you get taught, so you don't have that much say. And then if you're just traveling, actually that can be the most tricky of all, because unless you're the kind of person who can just kind of shamelessly speak in any situation, then it can actually be quite tricky to get structured speaking practice. So depending on the situation you're in, I would definitely look at trying to contact some people in advance and arranging to meet them for language exchange. And the cool thing about that is then that's also a really good way to make friends, and they can show you around the local place where you are. That's especially good if you're just going to be staying in one place. We have many Chinese people listening to this podcast. So what you could do, Quentin, is go into the show notes, which will be at iwillteachyoualanguage.com/episode 186. Let us know where you're going to be going, and we might have some listeners here who will be able to reply, and maybe they'd invite you to go for some food or have a chat in Chinese or something like that. It would be so cool if I could connect you with other people locally where you're going. So go and let us know some more information in the comments. And if you're in China, if you're Chinese, and you'd like to help Quentin out and maybe show him around, depending on where he's going, go and reply in the comments and let him know and invite him to get in touch. I'm sure that would be most welcome. So yeah, it's about that really. I think it's about really thinking, what's the unique opportunity about going to China and how can I make the most out of it? And hopefully the suggestions here have given you some inspiration for that. And I hope you have a great time. Let us know how it goes. If you would like to ask me a question like Quentin did, you can go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/ask. And if you'd like to leave a review on the show, that would be most welcome because it helps other people find the podcast. So just go to the iTunes store, search for I Will Teach You a Language, and you can leave me a review there. I'd love you forever if you did that. Now, at the end of every episode, I'd like to leave you with a resource of some kind on the topic of the show. And this resource for today is actually a recent podcast episode that Quentin, you should definitely listen to because it will be good preparation for you. It's episode 153, and it's tips for learning languages abroad. I recorded this at the New Year whilst I was in Hong Kong, so it was really on my mind at that time. So have a listen to that. If you are planning a trip abroad at any point this year, check out this episode as well because it will really give you some ideas on how to focus your time so you make the most out of it. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you back in the next episode for a very, very special one indeed. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you'll just have to listen back for that next week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. And here at Story Learning, everything that I do is powered by stories, whether that's writing books, teaching lessons, crafting courses. My mission is to help everyone succeed at learning a new language through the power of story. And we now have comprehensive language courses in over 15 languages, from Spanish to French, Korean to Japanese, and across all levels from beginner to mastery. And you can take a 7-day free trial of any of these programs by visiting storylearning.com/courses. I've poured my heart and soul into creating these courses over the last 10 or so years, and we've helped tens of thousands of new students achieve their dreams of learning a new language, all through the power of story. So go ahead and take a free trial. There's no commitment. You can try out our method for free, see if this can also be the breakthrough for you that it's been for so many other people. storylearning.com/courses.